Good evening, everybody. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talk's College Sports Huddle. Focusing on football or basketball mostly, and some football tonight, and the overall health of the NCAA, which is not very good, unfortunately. We'll get into all of that. Want to welcome everybody watching tonight on TGI Sports Talk, of course, on Facebook and YouTube, Twitter as well. Watching on Northeast Streaming Sports on their Facebook and YouTube feeds, and also you'll see us repeated on Northeast Streaming Sports Roku channel Saturday morning, at 9 a.m. And also Let's Talk Sports on their YouTube channel. Thumbs up to DDH, speaking of Let's Talk Sports. And I also want to give us out to Ralph Williams over there at RW Media, especially he does a lot of great stuff, Ralph does, specifically the Sports Corner with Smoke and Jim Frazier on WBVP. See, I messed those call letters up Sunday. I apologize. WBVP, 12:30 a.m. and 99.3 FM. I did get that part right. That's Tuesday nights at 5 p.m. So check that out. And Ralph's always got some good guests on. Ralph's got a lot of good stuff on RW Media in general. So check that out. Tonight, guys, we'll get into the NCAA. We'll talk about the NCAA issues. The ruling coming down on NIL and the transfer portal, both where a court injunction has stopped the NCAA from enforcing any rules. Basically, it's a wild, wild west. It already was, but now we've taken away any illusion, at least temporarily. And if you think this won't last, you're probably nuts. What else? We'll also talk about maybe the expanded playoff in the college football. But in basketball, we're getting close to March Madness. Excuse me. So we'll take a look at, as we're getting ready to head into conference tournament time here this weekend, if not sooner. We'll take a look around the conferences. We'll look at the top 25, of course. We'll look at bracketology and each league with who's in, who's got work to do, and who's on the bubble firmly. And some other topics. We talk about fan violence. I mean, again, another instance the other night of a fans throwing a bottle during what was it? What game was that? Texas Tech and who was it? Well, I can't remember who the hell it was. Texas and Texas Tech. Texas wins the game. There was a bad, a hard hip check foul. Hip check is a hockey term, I guess, but still, the fans are throwing bottles on the court. Fans are trying to get on the court. One fan is removed and arrested. You cannot, guys. Buying a ticket to a game does not give you carte blanche to do anything you want. You can boo. You can do whatever you want. You can't cause physical harm or try to cause physical harm to players or other fans. You can't throw racial epithets. You can't just do whatever you want. You can boo and you can heckle players all you want. I mean, there's another story about LeBron James sticking up for his son, Bronny, but that's normal, everyday heckling. I'm talking about fan violence. Needs to stop, guys. And stop storming the court like you're 5. God. Players have gotten hurt. We saw a Duke player get hurt last week when Wake, who was favored to win the game, Flipowski, who took the last shot, I believe, for Duke, couldn't get off the court and gets hurt. Caitlin Clark got hurt earlier in the season, maybe a month or so ago, with a Stork cornering in an Iowa game. Just stop, guys. What are we doing? Oh, God. Anyway, we can talk about some of that stuff. Hello, Augustin. How are you? It's good to have you with us tonight. Hopefully we'll talk more basketball than some of these other nonsense. Everything is well. Thanks, JB. Good to have you with us here tonight. And check out JB on the Back It Up Binge podcast, which I know you can catch on Twitter. You can tell me if there's other places we can catch your podcast, JB, because I'm misremembering. But if you want to post anything pushing your show, times, locations, I'll be glad to put it up and mention it. And so, guys, we're coming up in March Madness is upon us. March starts on Friday. Conference tournaments, I believe, will start. Let's see. Let's take a quick look here. We should start this weekend if we haven't started already. March 6th, March 6th and 9th. Are we out? And no, we're not in. I hate it when they do this. The Atlantic Stunt starts on Monday. And I think that's probably the first one. So this weekend, we got regular scheduled basketball. Next Monday, we start conference tournaments play for the next couple of weeks. To me, conference tournament play is better than the NCAA tournament, which I love. But I think conference tournament, it's not week. It's more 2 weeks. Is a lot of fun. And we'll get into when those tournaments run a little bit as well. Let's take a quick look. The first thing I think we'll do is take a look at the where we are in the rankings as we get ready to head into those conference tournaments, which are going to play. And we'll look at bracketology, teams that are in, teams that have got work to do, teams that are out. Again, these conference tournaments are going to have a lot of say in who goes, because the winners get in, and there's always going to be bid steals, bid thieves, if you will, during these conference tournaments. Not as much as we've had in the past, since field has expanded so far to 68 teams, but you still have some. And we'll look at the teams that are Joe Lenardi's first four in, or first four out, next four out, that type of thing. And a lot of teams on the bubble, a lot of teams with work to do, but some are solid. I think 3 of the number 1 seeds are pretty much locked in, barring unforeseen circumstances. Okay. Houston, Purdue, and UConn, I think, have locked up number 1 seeds. Tennessee could still get there. Marquette could still get there. Arizona could still get there. Kansas could probably still get there. I think they're the only teams alive for number 1 seeds. Let's look at the top 25, and then we'll go around the conferences a little bit, and we'll talk about the tournament outlook, if you will, and who might or might not get in. Houston's number 1. Back to number 1. Purdue and UConn had been swapping a spot for a couple of, it seems like a couple of months, but Houston has been sneaking their way up. They're number 1 now at 24-3. Purdue moves back up a spot. We didn't do the show last week, so some of this will be a little bit different than the last time we did a show, especially UConn. They've now fallen out of the number 1 spot down to number 3. They're the only 3 teams getting receiving first place votes. Then you've got Tennessee, which I have said a couple of times so far, and I fell into this trap last year. I think this is Rick Barnes' best team. And then they went out, I think, in round 1 last year. They're 21-6. They're playing some great defense, playing some of the best basketball in the country in the last couple of months. Marquette with Shaka Smart played a really tough non-conference schedule. I want to talk about non-conference schedules and how it's been manipulated a little bit too here in this year. We'll talk about that in the Big 12s probably as we go through this. But Marquette at 21-6 is ranked number 5, and I think still with a decent shot at a number 1 pick. They win the Big East. They're going to be number 1. Maybe UConn and Marquette are both number 1s. It's possible. Arizona drops a couple of spots. They're still 21-6 as well. Kansas up a couple spots to number 7. Iowa State. This is where I'm going to start my little diatribe here. Iowa State is 21-6. They're number 8. They were as high as number 6 here a couple of weeks ago. But the Big 12, I think, found a way to rig the system and play the system a little bit. They played such a week as a rule. Some teams didn't play a week non-conference, but most of these teams did not play the strongest non-conference schedule they could have. So what happened was their overall ranking for all these teams was really high when they started playing conference games. So now every time they were beating each other, somebody was getting a quad 1 win because of the weak non-conference schedule that these teams play as a whole. Some of you out there, Kansas fans, whomever, might argue with me or quibble with me, but I will tell you overall, The league played one of the worst non-conference schedules out there. Hence, Iowa State, I think, might be a little overrated. North Carolina, who spent much of this year in the top 10, even up in the top 5, in a very good year for Hubie Davis's team. 21-6, they are back up to number 9. Duke falls a couple of spots to 10 after that loss to Wake Forest last week, where Wake Forest was favored at home and still stormed the court. Wake up. Jesus Christ. Oh, excuse me. Auburn, sleeper, watch out. Watch out. This is a good team. Watch out for this team in the SEC tournament. SEC tournament. We'll learn to talk again. And watch out for them in the NCAA. 21-6 also. Up 3 spots to 11. Creighton, another sleeper to watch out for out of the Big East. They're up 3 spots to 12. Illinois fading a lot of off-the-court issues. Bruce Underwood's done as good a job as he can do probably there this year. They're still hanging in there at 13. Alabama, a bit of a disappointment, I would say, so far for Nate Oates. Under Nate Oates. They're down to number 14. Baylor down 4 spots to 15. Again, that Big 12 factor I talked about, that week out of conference schedule, them playing each other and these things all showing up as quad 1 wins, overrating the league as a whole, in my mind. Kentucky, man, what an offense. If they play any defense come tournament time, watch out for Kentucky. John Calipari's team could surprise. They're 16 right now in the country. St. Mary's playing good basketball. I know we talked about this a little bit Saturday. We had some people talking about St. Mary's, and St. Mary's is always a tough out. They haven't been pushed as hard. Gonzaga still on the bubble probably. We'll talk about that a little bit as we go forward. But St. Mary's is now number 17. They move up a spot this week. South Carolina, 22-5. They're up 2 spots to 16. Washington State up 2 to 19, a bit of a surprise. Pac-12 pretty weak. I mean, UCLA and USC are just atrocious this year. And you're looking at maybe 2 bids, maybe 3 out of the Pac-12. We'll talk more about that too. San Diego State falls to number 20. They've been dropping steadily. Dayton dropped 5 this week. I talked about them. They could be a sleeper. The A-10, better league than you think. I always talk about better leagues than you think. The A-10's a better league than you think. Utah State, speaking of better leagues than you think, the Mountain West has had, at one time, I think had 5 teams in the top 25. They've fallen off a little bit as we head towards tournament time. We'll see if they can regroup. Gonzaga has moved back into the top 23 or top 25 at 23. We'll see if they're getting their mojo back in time to get themselves, even if it's a 10 or 11 seed into the NCAA tournament. Florida's starting to play better ball. They're flat at 24. And South Florida, sneaky good, 21-5, pops into the top 25. Just missing were BYU, Texas Tech, and that's really TCU, Clemson, Wake. Dropping out this week, Colorado State, Texas Tech, and BYU fell out of the top 25. We use the AP poll for these rankings. I see Chris is with us here. Chris, I never say your last name right, Chris. I apologize. I'm a Smith & Jones guy. Chris, great to have you with us. Chris, a great new follower of the show. Happy to have him with us. Chris is talking about the NBA. Have you kept your eye out on I kept my eye out on Bobo at all? I have not. The NBA for me is a playoff tournament. I follow the Knicks, and we'll talk the Knicks on the shows now and again. But I have not. I was going to talk a little bit about the NBA only in the sense of, there's all this talk about LeBron and where he's going to position himself to play so they can play with Bronny when he comes out. Well, look, Bronny's got to get his own act together at USC. He was hurt, or not hurt. He had the heart problem. Didn't play till about mid-season. Hasn't played great, getting jeered. Now LeBron's fighting his fights for him. LeBron, let Bronny stand up for himself. If he plays well, the jeers will go away. You're going to get overrated if you're a highly regarded prospect. You're going to get jeered, and you're going to get, jeered, a chance of overrated and whatever else. As long as I said before, when I talk about fan behavior or misbehavior, I'm talking about booing and chanting overrated. You're not throwing things at the court. You're not firing racial epithets at players. You're not trying to get in players' faces. We got to be able to deal with this. And LeBron, don't fight Bronny's fights for him. He can do it. He's a grown man now. I know you're a dad and you want to stick up for your kid. You're not doing him any favors or yourself by doing this. And we can only hope that LeBron sees this show. Augustin, how are you? It's good to see you as well. Augustin, a big Oregon fan, by the way. Let's take a look at, I want to take a look at the around the league. Let's say, I want to go not around the leagues and who's, we'll maybe look at some records if we can. But I think what I'd rather do right now is kind of look at, basically each league. We'll look at the one bid leagues later. But right now, these are going to be the multiple bid leagues, most likely. And we'll talk about who's locked, who's got work to do, and who, I guess we had locks projected in and maybe work to do. The ACC, not long ago, was looking like they would have two teams. And Ralph Williams, we just talked about Ralph Williams. Good evening, Ralph. We just talked about Ralph from RW Media, and I'll give Ralph another quick shout out. As I did at the top, Ralph has a lot of great stuff going on at RW Media. Check that out. And specifically the sports corner that he does with Smoking Jim Frazier every Tuesday at 5 p.m. on WBVP. Get to it right this time. 12:30 a.m. and 99.3 FM. Check that out. Got a lot of great Pittsburgh sports, a lot of great national sports. Ralph does some other things outside of the sports world too, commentary wise. And he's a good man that does a lot of good work. So check out Ralph's stuff. I share the shows when I get him and think to do it, and probably should do it more. And I promise I will. John DeLon, how y'all doing down there, John? John's a big LSU fan. We aren't talking football just yet. We'll get into some football maybe later on. We're still talking college basketball. And John, I know, is a big LSU fan. Not going to be a player in the SEC championship, their tournament, or in the NCAA tournament, I don't believe. But I am curious about John's thoughts, because I don't think we've had a chance to talk about, supposedly, Coach Kelly sniffing around the Michigan job before Sherrod Moore got the job. So I'm interested what John might have to say about that. You're more than welcome, Ralph. Good man, Ralph Williams. I like listening to his stuff. Anyway, the ACC, who a few weeks ago were looking, now maybe a little longer than that, 2 bids. Now we're looking at potentially probably 4 right now with a few teams on the bubble. Carolina, Duke, Clemson should all be in. Wake Forest, I would say, is in, especially after that win at Duke last Saturday. I believe it was last Saturday. And on the bubble, Virginia, who's fallen to the bubble, by the way. Pittsburgh and Virginia Tech, who played up to the bubble. I don't see, I really don't see them going any further than that in my mind. If they were going to go further than that, we'd probably be looking at, I just don't see it happening, but we'd probably be looking at maybe Syracuse. They had a nice win against Virginia Tech last night. Syracuse maybe could play their way onto the bubble by finishing up the regular season with a victory and playing deep into the tournament. I just don't see it happening. I just don't think that's going to happen for Syracuse this year. So that's where that looks. Big Ten. Locks. Purdue. I think Purdue's in and locked up a number 1 seed. As I said earlier, Wisconsin and Illinois, I would say, are in. Bruce Underwood's done a decent job at Illinois this year with some really serious issues off the court, which are affecting them on the court because the players involved are playing. Probably projected to be in, let's say, right now after a horrible start, Tom Izzo and Michigan State. Although, if I'm Michigan State, I don't go one and done in the Big Ten tournament. On the bubble, Nebraska, Northwestern. I think Northwestern right now is at this moment in the tournament. I put them maybe where Michigan State is. And Iowa is on the bubble as well. They played better of late. We certainly like Fran McCafferty. We often root for him. I root for stories. I'm a Marquette fan from when I was a kid. Al McGuire was there. I root for the local teams in Siena and Albany State. But I root for stories, and I follow coaches. Fran McCafferty's always been one of my favorites since he coached here at Siena, locally here at Siena. And did a great job, took them to 2 NCAA tournaments. And he's had a good run at Iowa, and we'll root for him to jump in there. I think he's going to have a tough time making the tournament. Anybody else that we could say might belong for the Big Ten? I don't think so. Let's see, where's my... I guess some people will talk about... we already talked about Wisconsin, sorry. I see there's nobody else. Minnesota's 8-8. And by the way, as we have these conversations, you're going to hear me say over and over again, teams with below 500 records in their conference should not be in consideration for the NCAA tournament unless they win their conference tournament. That's it. End of story. I'm tired of watching teams finish 7-10 in their own league and make the tournament. And we'll talk about that with the Big 12 here in just a little bit. In fact, we'll talk about it right now. The Big 12 right now is projected to have, right now, locks Baylor, Houston, Iowa State is the test case for what I'm talking about. This league is overrated because of the non-conference schedule they played was so weak. When they started playing each other, there was a quad one win every night because all these teams were highly ranked. The metrics were all very high. And to me, it's ended up with Iowa State, Texas Tech, Oklahoma, Cincinnati, all being overrated. So right now, they're projecting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams in, maybe as many as 9 for the Big 12. Right now, blocks are Baylor, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas, BYU, Texas Tech, and TCU. But they're projected to be in, I should say, Texas Tech and TCU. On the bubble, Oklahoma, Texas, and Cincinnati. Now, here's my problem. I hate this. Oh, God. So look, a couple of these teams. Oklahoma's 7-7 in the league. Texas is 7-8. Cincinnati's 5-10. 5-10 in the Big 12 on the bubble. Stop it. Unless they win the conference, how are they getting in the NCAA tournament at 16-12 and 5-10 in their conference? The eye test says no. I know I'm going to get thrown a lot of BS metrics, and I hate it. So anyway, you got to be 500 in your conference, right? Am I asking for a lot? This happens every year, and it happens out of the Big 12 more than any conference I can think of. I don't care if you get 8 or 9 bids, but let the teams finish at least 500 in the conference unless you win the tournament. That's all I'm saying. Is there anything coming out of UNLV of late? The Rebels, or am I going too far back in time? Not much coming out of UNLV. They're playing now in the Mountain. They're playing in the Mountain West, right? That's how much they're on the radar. I don't think they have not been ranked this year at all. Chris, right now they're 10-5. They're 10-5 in a big. Listen, and again, I talk a lot about the Mountain West being underrated as much as I talk about the Big 12 being overrated. The Rebels right now are 10-5 in the conference, 17-10. This team could win that conference tournament. I think that conference tournament's going to be wide open. Utah State, Boise State, San Diego State made it to the Final Four last year. Nevada, UNLV, New Mexico played really well early in the year. They're 9-6 in conference, 21-7 overall. Richard Pitino, the coach out there, Rick Pitino's son. Colorado State's been ranked for a lot of the year. They're 8-8 in conference. I mean, you got 6 or 7 teams that could theoretically win the Mountain West. And the Mountain West, since we're talking about it, I'll get to your comment in a second there, John, too. Let me just zip down to the Mountain West here. Come on. Mountain West. Right now, the only lock is San Diego State, who's 4th or 5th in the conference. New Mexico projected in. Colorado State projected in. Utah State projected in. Just finished over 500, Colorado State. What we got here? John DeLon, I was talking about Brian Kelly. He has met his wife, Paquil, if that's how you say her name. I hope it is. I know for a fact that she hates the cold and does not want to go anywhere near South Bend's winters. Well, we were talking about Michigan, but that's even further north, right? So, Sonia, how are you? I'll be on with Sonia Pearson at 9 o'clock tonight on her show. Oh, gosh. Help me out here, Sonia. Where are we? I'll find it. All things football from a lady's perspective. And we'll be talking more than football, I think, tonight. But join us at 9 o'clock right to here on Northeast Streaming Sports. And I'll certainly try to share it to TGI Sports Talk as we're doing the show as well. And Sonia's sharing this show, so welcome to her audience as well. John says it's also noteworthy that Brian filed for divorce during his first year in Baton Rouge. And I think if the two are separated, for close to a year. Is it separated from Paquil? I don't even know. I didn't get the. I didn't know we were going to get into the days of our lives of LSU, but so I'm going to take those comments, John, to mean he did not sniff around the Michigan job. Because you're the guy with your ear to the ground there. I'm just. I'm picking up news stories where I can. Good evening, Kenny Gifford. Up on the mountain, you're going to get some snow tonight, buddy. It's going to be cold, cold, cold here. I can only imagine what it's going to be on the mountain. Bundle up and get your snowshoes ready. I don't know what you're laughing at, but Kenny just laughs. I need some. I'm sorry. Rick Sherlock, one of our great followers, along with you guys are all my great followers. I don't mean to, when I point somebody out, do not feel left out or disparaged because you're not. When I mention somebody, it's often because they're a Perthite, and Perthites, rock. Not education-wise. No, sorry, Kenny, I'm just kidding. I'm only kidding. Don't get. I'll tell your wife I'm just kidding. John says there's a rumor that LSU AD pressured Kelly to get back together with his wife. Come on. Oh, my God. These guys should worry about educating kids and not getting the football coaches back together with their wives. Wind's blowing really hard on the mountain. We'll get the weather report here. We can talk more. I've talked about it from, and I'm going through but again, as usual, just like the Sunday show, we can jump around. I'm kind of going through the projected bids for the tournament, conference by conference, but we will talk storming the court, Rick, so you can put your comments up right now if you want. I touched on it. I talked about how it's got to be under control. Don't act like you're freaking 5 or 12 or 15 years old. You kids are adults at this point. That's not even a correct sentence. You young people are adults at this point. Do not storm the court. You're going to get hurt. Your friend's going to get hurt, and you're going to hurt somebody badly that's on the court. We've already seen 2 potential serious injuries. Fortunately, one was not. We don't know yet about Duke's player going forward. I don't think it's a serious injury for the long term. A short term it might be. And we've got the tournament coming up, the ACC tournament, and then the big dance. Caitlin Clark almost hurt seriously a few weeks ago. Stop storming the court. Ugh. Sonia good at football? Well, I mean, if we're going to start a Northeast Streaming Sports football, she's very knowledgeable about football. I can tell you that. If we're going to start a Northeast Streaming football team, I think, without disparaging any of the other normal panelists on Northeast Streaming Sports, I would take Jim Jeffcoat and Sonia on my team, other than a few other folks. But I'm just talking out loud, not any reason. I know at 21 I wasn't an adult. Yeah, I know you're not at 67. None of us. I'm not talking about. Yeah, I know. I probably was the same way at 21, and at 64. Yes, I'm much younger than Kenny. Much younger than Kenny. But we didn't get much smarter as the classes went down. At least, common sense wise. I would like to think I wouldn't do this. And I don't know that I would have. I don't think I'd be a person storming a court. That wasn't my personality. It's dangerous, man. I know they don't understand it. I know they don't think they can get hurt. They all think they're invincible. They're drunk, maybe drugged up. I don't know what they are. But we stormed the court way too much. Wake Forest was favored in the game against Duke. I understand it's North Carolina, big rivalries in North Carolina. But I always go back, and these aren't players, I get it. But Barry Sanders talked about how, he didn't spike the ball because I wanted to act like I'd been here before and expected to be back. Fans aren't going to act the same way. But we don't have these problems in NFL stadiums. I think we can control it. I don't agree with CJ's comments. I did get a chance to comment during the Northeast professional sports show earlier. I don't agree with CJ's comments about the NCAA wants this. I don't think they want this. Any publicity is not good publicity. This is bad. Somebody's going to get hurt badly at some point. I mean, think about it. There's older people on these benches, coaches, trainers. God, do you remember when Villanova had a trainer in a wheelchair for the longest time when Raleigh Massimino was there? I think the figurehead, but still, he was sitting down there on the court. And you have people that are unprotected. We talked about. I'll get off on the tangent here. Sorry. We'll get back to the NCAA tournament in a little bit after this brief timeout for editorializing. What was I getting at? What was I going to talk about? It doesn't happen in professional sports. You could stop it if you want to. The NCAA doesn't want some tragedy on their hands. I'm sure if they wanted to, they could figure out a way to stop this. It's stupid kid looking for Instagram moment that are storming in court. I don't disagree even a little bit. Even a little bit. I don't get it. I don't, did we storm the court in high school, Rick, and you guys played basketball, and this is a basketball phenomenon more than football. I've seen it happen in football, yes. Not to the extremes that you see it in basketball. And I know this probably happens in high school gymnasiums. I don't remember it happening at Perth. I didn't play basketball, but I sat in stands, and I don't remember it happening where we stormed the court. Maybe Rick and I believe Rick and I know Kenny played basketball. I believe Rick did. I don't remember it. Just a matter of time when a frustrated player decks one of these idiots running out with their camera. And you know what's going to happen, Rick? The player's going to get arrested. It's going to be nuts. Because the guy doing a swinging will always be wrong. Remember I interviewed Kermit Washington a while back, former Laker, Blazer, Celtic, played for a lot of teams, Clipper. Played for a lot of teams in the NBA. And we talked about the punch where he almost killed Rudy Tomjanovich. Because he just reacted And again, you can think whatever you think about the interview and his explanations and whatnot. But I take him as word because I've heard this more than once that, he just reacted instinctively. He was in a fight and he's got somebody rushing up behind him and he turned and swung and almost killed a man. That's going to happen here. Kind of what Rick talks about here. That's what's going to happen here. A fan's going to be running up behind somebody. He's going to react. He might even kill the kid. And then what? Now you got a tragedy, right? You're absolutely right, Rick. Roch won with a Duke, and that kid didn't get punched in the back. Plus, he acted. No, I don't know which kid we're talking about. The kid from Duke got hurt. He hurt his shin, I believe. Hang on a second. Hang on one second. He's not playing. He's not playing, so it's not like nothing happened. He's in the lineup tonight. My bad. He's in the starting lineup after scoring. What happened? Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Preseason All-American. He collided with a fan and was hobbled Saturday in Winston-Salem. Team manager and coaching staff helped him off. All right, so maybe he acted, whatever. It doesn't change the fact that storming the court is stupid and somebody could get seriously hurt. Caitlin Clark was hurt a few weeks ago. We've seen students get hurt, end up in the hospital. So again, I'm not going to judge the kid whether he acted or didn't. I didn't look at the video as closely as that. If that's the case, then that's the case here. It doesn't change the fact that it's a tragedy waiting to happen. To Rick's point, somebody's going to get punched, put in a hospital, or worse. And then we'll see what happens. These kids today won't be famous want to be famous more than anything else, and are willing to take any risks to achieve said fame. You know what? I don't often agree with John DeLon. I appreciate his points of view, and he and I often go at it pretty good on this show, especially when it comes to college football and certain topics, which we don't have to get into tonight because we don't have time. But I agree 100% with John here. Do appreciate his opinion and respect his opinion, even when it's wrong. But he's not wrong here. He's absolutely right. NCAA is worried more about money than safety. That part I'll agree with. And the NCAA's got more to worry about than even money. The NCAA itself has got its very existence to be worried about because it's a toothless organization now anyway. I do not think they care. I don't think they want people storming the court for publicity, though. I don't think they want to see some of the top players potentially get hurt or worse, not worse, on the same level, I guess, take a swing at somebody and end up in jail. Cal band. Well, that was the band, though. That wasn't, in fact, I thought about that as I was saying it, Kenny, but it wasn't really the fans on the field. It was the band. And that was before the game was over. So that wasn't really rushing the field as much as, that was supposed to happen, but not when it happened. But I do remember that play very well. And that trombone player, I'm sure, remembers it even better than I do. Nobody stormed the court. Hell, we didn't win very much. I was going to say that, but I didn't know if my memory was correct. And I did want to besmirch Coach K's memory. God bless him. Danny was a great guy, and I didn't want to tarnish his memory. But I guess if he had a big win, say over at home against Bishop Scully, would they have stormed the court? I pros that every Big Ten and SEC team install a retractable fence that pops up out of the ground to prevent field storming. Well, there you go. Probably don't need it. I haven't seen it happen that much in football, though. The Cal band notwithstanding. It's happened. I'm not saying it happened. We happen to see it more, and maybe it's more dangerous in college basketball because you're in a much more confined space. I think the soccer stadiums in England or Europe, I think they have some of these fences up, and people have been killed there with a crush of people trying to get through to rush the fields. Hell, I don't think it was that many years ago. It might have been Manchester United. I'm sure it was England. That there was an awful tragedy of, I think, more than double-digit people being killed in one of these fan-crushing events, if you will. Right? So there's no real answer other than people acting civilly in public. How about that? How about we just act civil in public? Only when you buddy Miss Foul Shot and Perth beat brought off and my buddy. Was there? Did the fans storm the court? Was Shannon? Shannon, if you're watching tonight, I apologize. I apologize for your name being dragged through the mud here. But did the fans storm the court that night? I was there. I was a very young man, obviously, because I'm so much younger than you guys. But in baseball in the 70s, it was almost customary. Good point. And we talked about that on the Northeast Professional Sports Show at 6 tonight, too. As Chris says, in baseball, it was almost customary for fans to storm the field after a big game. Almost every championship photo has some Joe Blow in the background. Didn't hear that much violence. Well, I'll tell you what, if you remember, and you're right, we weren't under a human microscope back then, but remember 1976 with Chris Chambliss hitting a home run to beat the Royals? He couldn't even get around the bases. Had to be let, and he went out to touch home plate. The cops took him out after the game, and home plate was gone. There was some danger there. After they won the 77 World Series, Reggie Jackson had to come off the field like a freaking fullback to get to the dugout safely. And they had put mounted police around there. But it was mentioned today that one of the first teams to really stop that, Chris, was the 1980 Phillies when they won the World Series. They had a huge police presence around that Veteran Stadium, and there was no fan issues at all. And there really haven't been in baseball since about then. But you're very right about the 70s and fans rushing the field. And there was some danger there. I mean, Chambliss lost his helmet. It was dangerous. How the Royal players even got to the dugout is beyond me. But John is always right. I'll say this about you, John. I think you have your courage of your convictions, and I do respect that always. Respect that from all you guys. I always say I'm a very opinionated guy. I believe the things that I say wholeheartedly. I don't say things just to stir up controversy, although a lot of things I say may be controversial. And I think John is the same way in the sense that I have the courage of my convictions. I will stick by what I believe. If I'm proven wrong, I'll admit I'm wrong also. I kind of go by the Billy Packer axiom that I'm sometimes wrong, but never in doubt. And I like that. That'll go on my tombstone if I actually decide to have one. I know the fields in Puerto Rico were designed by how far they can throw the whiskey bottle. Let's not disparage just Puerto Rico, because I'm sure this happens throughout the winter leagues. I'll tell you, and I've watched some of this because winter league baseball is really good. There's really good baseball being played down there in the Caribbean, by the way. But it can be dangerous at some of these games. And the Dominican Republic, everywhere. It's not just Puerto Rico, but your point is taken, Kenny. I don't know how we got on this topic. But there you go. So we talked about the Mountain West. We talked about, where did I leave off? I think I was talking about the Big Ten. Yes, I was. Big 12, overrated. Oh, my God. Anyway, Big East. Big East. Listen, Big East is better. Marquette's a lock. UConn's a lock. UConn might be a lock for a number one right now. Marquette can play themselves to a number one, I think, if they win the Big East championship. And Creighton's sitting there on the outside looking in. They're not the outside looking in, but from the outside, looking up, thinking, nobody's watching. Watch out for Creighton. Those teams should be in. Then they got a bunch of teams on the bubble. Providence, Villanova, Seton Hall. I think Seton Hall's in. Shoshana Holloway's done a great job at Seton Hall this year. And I think Seton Hall should be in the probably in category. Butler and St. John's. Again, I got to look at conference records, right? I'm a big Rick Pitino fan. I know people similar to Jim Harbaugh don't like Rick Pitino. But the man wins, right? And the things he's been in trouble for are not things that have really affected wins and losses. They haven't. Right now, all of those teams except St. John's and Butler's 7-10, cannot be in the tournament. They're on the bubble. They have them. I'm not buying it. St. John's 8-8. They could get to 9-9 before the tournament starts. I'm okay with them being considered if they get to 9-9. Villanova's over 500. Seton Hall's 11-5 in a very competitive Big East. They're in the tournament, to me, right now, unless they flame out badly. Let me go through some of these others. I see some of the comments, but let me get through a couple more conferences here before we do this. Pac-12, one lock, and probably Washington State. Arizona's in, still playing for number one seed, theoretically. Washington State, I think, is in. On the bubble, Colorado and Utah. No UCLA, no USC, no Oregon, no Utah. All teams that are usually being talked about this time of year. The SEC, locks, Alabama, Tennessee. I've told you a couple times. We'll see what John DeLon has to say about this. I know he's a bigger football fan than basketball fan. Rick Barnes been along a long time. Providence, Clemson, Texas, Tennessee. I think this is his best team. Really good defense. The offense can be efficient. Alabama, not as had a good year this year as they had under Nate Oates last year. Maybe that helps them. Maybe they don't have the same kind of spotlight on them going into the tournament that they had last year. Plus, they don't have some of the distractions that they had last year. Auburn, I've said before as well, I think is a team to be careful of. Kentucky, these teams should all be locks. South Carolina should be a lock in my mind. Probably in. Florida State, Mississippi State, on the bubble, Texas A&M. Buzz Peterson, I like, is a really good coach, one of the better coaches, lesser-known coaches maybe of big-time college coaches. I think Buzz Peterson is one of the best. I think he'll have that Texas A&M team ready to play in the tournament, win a couple games, and maybe sneak his way into the tournament. But again, to my argument before about teams needing to win their tournament if they're under 500 in conference and not get at-larges. Let's see where the SEC, where do these teams fall here? Every team I just talked about is over 500 except Buzz Peterson's Aggies. Again, if they cannot get to 500, they should not be considered. Some big disappointments in that SEC, by the way. Arkansas, Eric Musselman, big talk about he's on his way out, either by his own volition or maybe with a kick in the pants. We'll see. I'll get to your guys' comments again pretty quick. I think I'm almost through here, these multiple bid conferences. Mountain West, we already talked about. Then there's the others, I guess. Dayton is a lock. St. Mary's is a lock. Right now, Gonzaga I've had on the bubble. I'm going to go to Lenardi's stuff here after this, last in and first out. Probably in, but they've been on and off the bubble a bunch of times this year. This is not your traditional Gonzaga team. In fact, Joe Lenardi has them as the last four in. So after some of the comments I just had, let me get to some comments here. Your fault. Yeah. When When I haven't been to the comments in a while and I see my fault, I'm not sure what we're talking about. Because Rick's last comment, I think, was about Shannon. It's all good. Shannon's got a sense of humor. I probably get fined for that in the cigar box. We probably should have not talked about Shannon until I got paid. Just kidding. If you're watching Shannon, it's all for fun. John Long says, if only Tennessee had taken how far a golf ball can be thrown into their stadium design. Yeah, that was a shot at the Vols. By the way, you can also thank the Vols for the latest state of stupidity. The courts shooting down any vestige of rules that can be enforced for the NIL. We can just use the wild, wild west now, go out and recruit everybody and give them millions of dollars to come to your school. It was happening anyway, but now we don't even have to pretend it isn't. Thank you, Tennessee. With that said, Rick Barnes might have his best team ever and a chance to win the NCAA tournament. Kenny's got 12 teams from the SEC. Let me see if I can beat that. Here's what I'll say are in. Tennessee's in, Alabama's in, Auburn's in, South Carolina's in, Kentucky's in, Florida, Mississippi State, that's 7. I don't know where you're getting. At best, I can come up with Texas A&M. That'd be 8. Ole Miss, probably on the bubble. But that's probably it. I mean, you could get to 9, I suppose, if you really want to push it, Kenny. Let's see, who's Lenardi got? He's got A&M as one of the first 4 out. He's got Ole Miss as one of the next 4 out. So Lenardi likely has the SEC with 7, just like I had just now. It's Lenardi's breakdown. Big 12, 9 teams out of the Big 12. Guys, you can't finish. That'll be 2 teams under 500. Plus, they padded their early season stats, so they got a bunch of quad 1 wins against each other because they play such a weak non-conference schedule early on. No USC is always a good thing. John constantly bashing the West Coast of the country. I think John would like to. John, where the Mississippi River? Where would you cut off the United States of America? Would it maybe be? Is it just north and south with the Mississippi River, or can we maybe take the Columbia River? And go north and keep them in the United States as well. And you probably want to cut us off up here. So maybe we have to take the Ohio River and everything north of that has got to go as well. I hope my geography is even close to that, but we'll see. Pat Crone is with us tonight. Must be why he feels 21. I think I know why you feel 21. Same reason Kenny feels 21 tonight. Pat, good to have you with us. Looking forward to seeing you at the Loopy's golf tournament in June. I think it's in June, right? So we'll see where John wants to cut off the country. I'm guessing, I'm probably not far off. I think John DeLong would consider cutting the country off at the Mississippi River, north and south, the Ohio River, east to west, to cut off the northeast, and then maybe the Columbia he will give the people above that, north of that, a shot to stay in the United States, and then the rest of us have to fend for ourselves. How far off am I? NIL is still kind of regulated, but boosters being a business owner that wants ROI out of NIL. Not really. Well, yes, in the sense that they're the guys providing the money. But again, NIL was to be used once a kid got to your school, John. The original premise. Hang on one second. I know that probably wasn't very attractive. It was better without the sound. I know. Sorry about that. The original premise of the NIL was name, image, likeness. Once you got to school, you could sell your name to a business owner to use, to go on a billboard, to be a television spokesman, whatever. It wasn't to be used to take the money from said business owner and go to ABC High School to recruit ABC player. That's not what it was put in place for. That's what it ended up being used for, as I said it would be. You guys can go back and watch my vlogs, go back and watch any of my shows from 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whenever this first started. Well, I guess 4 years ago. And I talked about the fact that NIL tied to the transfer portal is awful, and it'll be abused, and it has been ever since. It's been used as a recruiting tool to get kids in high school to go to this school, and to recruit a kid from this school to leave this school and go to my school. That was not what it was put in place to do. It just wasn't. Now, those rules have been shot down by the courts, and now it's what was happening anyway. At least we'll have full transparency and say, okay, go do what you want. You can give a kid $1 million from high school ABC to come to LSU, John. Do what you want. So it's not, and by the way, there's no regulations at all right now. That's what the courts just said. All the rules the NCAA has in place, which are very few to begin with, are null and void, at least temporarily. And we've got the Wild Wild West. Texas is coming to the SEC, so beyond the Mississippi. Well, it's true. I need another river. I guess I need another river that runs. Well, doesn't it? How far east does the Columbia River come? Doesn't that cover it? You see, again, my perfect education. Oh my gosh. We'll talk some college football here in a second. Let me just look again at Lenardi's last 4 buys. His number one teams, by the way, are Purdue, UConn, Houston, and Arizona at the moment. Last 4 buys: Texas, Wake Forest, Nevada, New Mexico. Those teams they'd avoid the play-in games, the first 4. The teams would be the last 4 in: Seton Hall, Virginia, Providence, and Gonzaga. All of those teams would have to play in the first 4 to get their spot in the full field. First 4 out, as I said, Texas A&M, Villanova, Utah, Colorado. The next 4 out: Butler, Ole Miss, Kansas State, and Iowa. Let me just see. Does he have? I'm sure he doesn't have Syracuse in here anywhere. I'm trying to get Syracuse to the bubble, and it's very hard to do. Syracuse is going to need to probably get to the conference final to have a chance to make it, although they haven't had a bad year in Adrian Autry's first year. No Syracuse. And I'm going to say no St. John's. Nope. No St. John's. All right. So there you go. What else is going on in the world? The NCAA basketball that we ought to talk about. Then we'll move to some football chatter, and whatever you guys want to talk about, we'll talk about. So bring it up. Anything, college football, baseball, basketball. We talked about Flipowski is in a lineup for Duke tonight. Texas win marred by an angry thing. This is the other thing I talked about at the top of the show. Stop throwing things. Guys, your ticket does not buy you the right to do whatever you want to do. You can't throw bottles. You can't throw food. You can't throw racial epithets. You can boo and you can jeer and you can say overrated and you can do whatever else you want. You can't throw beer bottles and try to get on the floor to start a fight. BYU halted KU's 19-game winning streak here last night. That's a big story, and both those teams should be in the NCAA tournament, by the way. Coaches are pretty much united on this whole court storming thing, by the way. Let's find a way to get rid of it. And that's kind of all I have for basketball at the moment. We'll move to some football news. Let me just check one other thing out here. By the way, guys, Zach Edney is going to be the player of the year, a second year in a row. I'm curious how Zach Edney is going to translate to the NBA. There's only a handful. I mean, Joel Embiid, I guess, maybe. I can't think of another really true center in the true sense of the world, the historical sense of the word, that's out there. And that's why how Zach Edney plays. So how's he going to translate to the NBA? I'm just not so sure. Oh, and Boston. We got to go north of Boston for John, too. Daniel Barry, Sports Highlights. Good to have you with us tonight, Daniel. You want to give a little shout out to your show? Give us some times and where the people can see it. I'll be glad to post it. Good to have you with us tonight. John DeLon talks about Ohio State self-reporting 3 level 3 violations today. That's in college football, I take it. Not big news. At least there, it's not big news. Let's see if not news there either. Let's find out what's going on and what they did, John. Ohio State Buckeyes football. I'm assuming we're talking about football. Yeah, self-reported 4 minor NCAA. By the way, a lot of teams do this to try to deflect. Infractions which occurred over a period of 5 months all involve recruiting, range from contacting a player before he entered the transfer portal to providing a high school player with a photo edit during a visit. Seriously? By the way, once the NCAA totally goes out of business and has been totally declawed, and who's going to police all this? These are, again, I'm not going to get into too much what to do with this because this is the first I'm seeing it, but good for them for self-reporting. Good for them for not covering it up. You need to join Kenny and I at the Mohawks to see good college baseball players. I do. I do need to get up there. We'll get up to a game. I promise we'll get up to a game. Maybe I'll try to pull an afternoon, Kenny. Rick, I don't think you play golf. If you do, you're welcome to join us. But we'll play Muni late in the day and then go to the Mohawks afterwards. I'll commit to that. I'm sure they'll just get a slap on their wrist. Of course they will. It's Ohio State. It's not Michigan. I want to go there. What else is going on? We'll talk some college football, I guess. Lance Leopold gets a nice raise from KU. It's all well and good for Kansas to give. It's a nice raise. $7 million a year in Kansas is a pretty big deal. But after going 17-21, this is how bad Kansas football is. 17-21, 15-11, and 2 bowl appearances the last 2 seasons. 15-11. That shows you how bad Kansas was before. Winless under Les Miles. So Leopold's done a good job there. I still think Leopold will not be there to finish out this contract, though. It would run through 2029. Is there anybody here willing to bet me that Lance Leopold will be at Kansas in 2029? I'm not sure he'll be there in 2026 or 5. Anyway, congratulations, Lance Leopold, becoming one of the higher paid coaches in the league. College Alabama draft prospect. Good grief. Dallas Turner said Nick Saban's retirement kind of hurt a lot of people's hearts, but it did not catch him off guard. He had seen changes in Coach Saban over the past year or so. What did he say? From how he was in my freshman year to my junior year, he's seen a lot of things change. So he wasn't surprised. He doesn't really go into what he saw change. It was still the same Coach Saban on the field, but you could tell the slight changes. Yeah, and by the way, Coach Saban has got himself a lucrative new deal with ESPN, which should surprise nobody. He will be on College Game Day in some form next fall on Saturdays. I wonder if he might not take the seat of Lee Corso here at some point. Lee Corso is a mainstay in college football and certainly on game day. And I know he's getting older and I know he's getting slower, but he's still a lot of fun on Saturdays. And it's one of the things that I look forward to. So I hope that's not going to be the case. I'll bet you $1. Do you have a Cash App? I do. Degenerate gambler. Who's got the hashtag, me or you? Oh, gosh. What's going on here? The college football. By the way, the college football playoff. We haven't even played a 12-team tournament yet, and we're already talking about the fact that we need 14 teams. I said before, and get Baseman Bob out to sue me, we need to go to 16 teams. I know, and again, I know John's going to tell me it's all participation trophy, and we'll see if he tells me that when, the third place team in the SEC, I want to hear how he spins it, when the team that finishes, ranked with the third highest in the SEC wins a national championship at some point. We'll see if it's still a participation trophy tournament. This will probably eat up the rest of our time here. I still think you go the way of the NCAA tournament in basketball. 10 leagues, winners all get in. Determine your league winner any way you want. And then 6 at large. That covers everybody. You also have no buys. Everybody has to play. Everybody's got a shot to play and shock the world. It's not participation trophy football. You played and won your conference, earned your right into a tournament. The at-large bids are where, if you're going to have participation trophies, it's at-large bids. And we've seen teams not win their conference championship, win national championships already. Most of them from the SEC, or maybe all of them. So anyway, we'll see what happens there. I'm trying to see what the Knight Commission on Intercollegiate Athletics continues to push for a new governance structure for college football, along with changes to the sport's revenue distribution plan. I'm not going to get into this whole thing, but they want to find a new way to control some of this money. The college football and ESPN have ultimately agreed to a deal worth $1.3 billion in annual revenue. And they want this money, they want better control of this money. Remember, the college football playoff really has nothing to do with the NCAA. Nothing. They're two separate entities. So at some point, you can see the SEC and the Big Ten breaking off, having their own, whatever, bring in more teams, have two 20-team leagues, or having their own championship, and the NCAA having their own as well. I would not put anything past anybody when it comes to the world of college athletics today. And I don't know what's going to happen, to Title IX. Corso needs to be moved to a recorded segment. I don't watch Game Day anymore. SEC Nation is where it's at because of Laura Rutledge. I don't know Laura Rutledge. Why do we like her? Is this a knowledge thing, John, or is this something else? I'm going to find out right now, so don't lie to me. Don't lie to me. All right, I know why you're watching. Oh, God. So you'd rather watch Laura Rutledge than Kirk Street? Herb Street? I still like Game Day. It's lost something. I was unhappy when they fired David Pollack. I thought David Pollack was a really good contributor to the show. I don't care for McAfee. He's a clown, and they're just, pandering to a younger audience, which is not me, obviously. He's funny sometimes. He does some funny stuff, but it gets old. And I like Corso. There are days where it's painful, though. I get it. Probably for him, too. Anthony, good evening. So you don't believe in the SEC Big Ten getting... No, I didn't say that. Automatic bids? No, I don't believe in that. No. Sorry, I missed the automatic part. If you're going to give them automatic bids, you're not earning anything. That feeds right into John DeLong's argument about participation trophies. I want as few automatic bids. I want the automatic bids to go to conference winners only. That's the way it's set up now. That's the way it would be set up in mine and Basement Bob, who will be suing me again right after this show. In our version, which I did not come up with, by the way. I didn't from Basement Bob. I'd only heard it probably, 5,000 times over the last 20 years. So Basement Bob, if you're going to sue me, please make it stick. Just remember, I got a very good lawyer who lives under my roof. Where was I? In my version, I'm giving every conference champion a shot to shock the world. And they earn their way in. So automatic bids should go to people that have earned their way there. Not just playing the best conference. I'll give them bids, not automatic bids. I'll give the other 6 will be up for grabs. You could make it stick with the college football poll, and just take the next 6 highest ranked teams. Okay with that? You can do whatever you want with those other 6 teams. I really don't care. I did Google searcher, John. As I said, I don't believe you're watching it for her football knowledge. Just saying. I'm sure she's very bright. Her husband looks like he's about 14. How old is she? Sorry, now I find myself infatuated with Laura Rutledge. 35. Her husband looks like he's about 10 years younger. John DeLong, The Athletic, had a 45-minute podcast with Herb Street earlier this week. I got 15 minutes into it before I turned it off because that's because he's a Big Ten quarterback. Kenny probably hates him if Kenny's still with us. Kenny hates him because he's an Ohio State quarterback who could make it in the NFL. Well, that theory's gone out the window with C.J. Stroud, hasn't it? I like Kirby. I really do. I don't. John, you might very well have a better reason than I do. What do you got here? If I hadn't been working, I would have turned it off right as it came on. Oh, John. Well, Anthony, what do you got for me? So a 14-team college football format being discussed, but do you think that's small, or do you need? I like 16. I've liked 16 since we talked about expansion. I didn't like the 18 format. I'm okay with 12. I'd be okay with 14. If it was up to me, I'd do 16 so I can give everybody who wins a conference a shot. There's not 25 conferences like there are in the NCAA basketball. There's 10. And I'd like to give those teams a chance to shock the world. And you'd still be, the best teams would still be in. I'm worried about this 14 team. I'm worried about, you're going to see when you get to 14, and if you're going to have what, 5 ACC, and who knows what's going to happen with these conferences, right? ACC, SEC, Big 10, Big 12. Who else? There's no Pac-12. So you're going to have 4 automatic seat bids and then 10 at-large teams that are going to get. So you could have theoretically, I don't know, 10 teams, maybe 11 teams from the Big 10 and the Big 12, maybe 12. Could happen. Not likely, but it could happen. And then what happens when that team, that's what I want from John DeLong. What happens when one of those teams that's, one of the at-large teams wins the national championship? Is it still is it just a participation trophy at that point? I say no, of course. You think Herbie's fake? I think he's, besides Laura isn't a teleprompter reading bimbo. She's really sharp when it comes to football. I'm not saying she isn't. I quite honestly, John, I will profess, I've never heard her talk at all, much less heard her talk about football. But as I check her out, I can see why you'd want to watch Laura rather than Herbie. I didn't say listen. I said watch. Now I'm in trouble, right? Because I'm a male chauvinist pig. Oh, God. I'm so bad. Going right to hell. Going right to hell again. Bill Sopkowitz, thanks for watching tonight. If you're still with us, Rob Logan, I see out there, Northeast Streaming Sports, Max Sports, Dave Wilfor, Sonia, we talked to. I'll be on with Sonia in a half an hour right here on Northeast Streaming Sports. Or I'm sorry, at 9 o'clock. Who else? And some of the others that are out there. It's just some of the people that I can see. I'm just glad the frauds, otherwise known as Notre Dame, can't get a first round bye. Well, not in the current setup, they couldn't. Correct. I do believe in a 14-team playoff, they will find a way to allow Notre Dame to get that first round bye if they were undefeated, let's say. And why are they a fraud, John? Why? I mean, independent football was a huge thing at one time. Big money. I mean, again, they took the money to stay on the independent. I get it. They took a big contract from NBC. They could probably get more money by joining the SEC or the Big Ten now than they get from NBC. But they stay independent. Even though they've lowered their academic standards, they're still they're as high or almost as high as anybody else in the nation. But we love to hate for whatever reason. I mean, I'm not a big, huge Notre Dame fan. I think Notre Dame being good is good for the game of college football. I think Alabama being good is good for the game of college football. I think Texas being good is good for the game of college football. Ohio State, Michigan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Every sport has teams that it's beneficial to that sport when they're good. Notre Dame's going to find it tough to schedule as we go forward. I mean, schedules are locked in for the next couple of years, I think, for the most part. But they're going to find it very hard to schedule as an independent going forward, and their schedules will get weaker and weaker. But, and there's times where their schedules are weak, but everybody's schedule's weak from time to time. The SECs won't be anymore, most likely. I mean, again, I would think that the cupcakes are going to get more cupcake-ish. The non-conference cupcakes will get even more so for the SEC and the Big Tens because conference schedules are going to get that much harder. And when a non-conference champ wins a natty, we both know it's going to be an SEC team. No, that will not be an example of participation trophyism. Of course it won't be, John, because that doesn't meet your narrative. I agree with you, by the way. I agree with you 100%. It won't be. But I don't know how you can make that comment. So you tell me, John, we don't have a lot of time left. We got 9 minutes left. I don't know how you can make that comment. And then if Ohio State or Penn State, well, Penn State's not going to do as long as James Franklin's there. I don't know. A team, anyway, anybody who finishes second or third, a non-conference champion from the Big Ten, which is the second most likely scenario here to the SEC, obviously. When that happens, then you're going to tell me it is a participation trophy-ism-ish? It is participation. It is participation trophy-ism then? You can't have it both ways, dude. It either is or it isn't. Not depending on who wins. And again, then go to 10 teams and take only league champions. You can't tell me that's participationism or participation trophyism. Every one of them won their league and earned their way in. Anybody who didn't win their league, to me, if I'm going to look to and buy into your argument, anybody who didn't win their conference tournament is getting a participation trophy. By your standard, not mine, by yours. Just saying. I know I'd get him involved in this conversation soon enough. I'm a horrible human being, aren't I? What else we got here in the world of college football? Draft's coming up. Is Caleb Williams is skipping the combine. I say he's got nothing to gain. Don't go. No different than Trump not going to the debates. Why go? We already talked about pay for play in the NCAA. It's here to stay, probably. Yeah, it's again, John. You do realize that you're supporting Liberty in the playoffs. I'll always support Liberty to be. That's the kind of patriot that I am. Oh, you meant Liberty College. I'm sorry. No, it will not be participate. No, again, John. If I'm letting only conference champions in. Champions allowing championship tournament does not equal participation trophyism. It doesn't. And by the way, the only way to get that ultimate trophy is to win all the games. So they're getting a trophy just for showing up. There's no trophy being given to Liberty if they get into a 16-team tournament as the champion of the Sun Belt. There's no trophies given to anybody except the winners. You go to the NCAA tournament, there aren't 68 trophies being given out to 68 teams. There's one trophy. We're talking about the same thing. Anthony, what do you got? You seen like the top 10 players? Yeah, again, if I'm a player coming into the draft, I mean, you got two buckets, right? You got guys who have nothing left. They can't help themselves. They can only hurt themselves. And you got guys who can help themselves. Michael Penix needs to go to the combine. I mean, he's looking at bottom of the second round at best right now. Projected. He's got to go. He's got to go there and impress the scouts. Some of the NFL teams aren't even going to the combine to show you how little prestige or how the prestige is being lost. So if I'm Marvin Harrison, if I'm Caleb Williams, if I'm Drake May, I'm not going. I can't do anything but hurt my draft stock. Guys like Michael Penix, probably Bo Nix. These guys need to go. And there's 100 other guys. 200 or 300 other guys. But if I'm one of the top 10, then I probably can't help myself by going. I'm not going to get more money. I can't improve my draft stock if I'm already a top 10 pick. And I don't believe it's going to hurt me by not showing up because some of the teams don't even come. So, again, the combine's starting to lose a little steam. I think teams are more interested in the individual workouts that these players will do at their own campus, in their own environment, onto their own guys. Oh, John, I only got 3 minutes left. We both know that participation trophy teams getting in isn't about fairness. It's about money that participation trophy teams don't deserve. I'm not talking about money, dude. I'm just talking about the fact of being able to play for a national championship when you win your conference. You change the meaning of participation every 5 minutes. If Liberty were to win, you tell me it was our participation trophy after they went through and beat in a 16-team tournament, 3 teams or 4 teams, however many you got to win, 8 or 3 games, teams that are far better than them, most likely. That would still be a participation trophy to you after they won their conference champion. And I'm not saying it could happen. The odds are astronomical that it could happen. But we're just not on the same page today. We're never on the same page here. Again, I wouldn't go for him either. He's probably locked in at 2 or 3. Why go? Why should he go? I wouldn't go either. But guys, we got to wrap it up here. What a quick hour and a half. So I had a lot of fun, talked a lot of basketball, a lot of football. Good to have John DeLong with us. I'll be on with Sonia Pearson later on. Guys, I thank all of you who participated tonight, and whether you commented or didn't comment, you guys have made this show very, very, very popular, especially during football season. We drop off in viewership a little bit this time of year, but I do my best with the college football to keep it going. So anyway, check out Northeast Streaming Sports here at 9 o'clock. I'll be on with Sonia Pearson. We're going to talk NFL, NBA, I don't know what else. We'll talk everything, and hopefully I don't make a fool of myself. Guys, have a great, great night. We'll see you next week with more college sports right here on the College Sports Huddle. See you later. Bye-bye.